thank you very much for joining tonight's session. It's good to see everyone back again. I'm going to be taking the attendance. In addition to that, I just want to make a quick announcement that Leanne has offered that Leanne, myself, and whoever we can also get to assist will be helping with the role plays, but that assistance is only available for the people who submit their knowledge questions by Sunday night. So tonight I'm going to be going through the knowledge questions with everybody, and we will go through, I can't give the answers, of course, but we'll go through the we'll go through the content, and hopefully it can make it a bit easier for you to answer those questions. So can everybody see my screen? Yes. Okay, perfect. So question 1, it's asking, says listed in the table below are different types of client needs assessments. Complete the table below by providing, oh, sorry, I just want to just stop right there and say either take notes or have your knowledge questions open so that way you can put in information, because I'm going to be giving a little bit of information and helping you find those answers. I know we went through them previously and I gave page numbers, but I'm going to be a little bit more specific with the help that I give tonight. So
I might just come in there. Is it all right if I record tonight's session, Kylie, and everybody that's in attendance?
Hi,
yeah,
everyone.
that's fine. Hi,
Okay,
Mitzi.
so I'm going to press record. If you want to turn your cameras off, feel free. But
Let me put some lipstick on and some perfume.
How are they going to notice
Hi,
perfume?
everyone. Hello.
Hi, Sadaf.
Hi.
Well, I
Hi,
think
everyone.
it's recording. It says it's recording, so hopefully we'll capture this anyway. All right, go for it, Kylie.
All right, thank you. So just for everyone that's just joined us, Mitzi, Sadaf, I just made a quick announcement that whoever can submit their knowledge questions by Sunday night will get some extra help with their role plays this coming week. And I'll be there to help, and Leanne will help, and we'll see who else we can get to volunteer to help. But that's the bonus. If you can submit your knowledge questions by Sunday night, then you're going to get extra assistance. So that's just a bit of an incentive to get everyone motivated to finish off those knowledge questions, because not a lot of people have submitted them so far. And that's okay, you've still got time. So we're just going to go through the knowledge questions now. So either have your knowledge questions open or have a pen and paper ready to take down some notes. So we'll start with question 1. Question 1 says, listed in the table below are different types of client needs assessments. Complete the table below by providing a brief definition of the indicated type of assessment, specifying 2 contexts available for each type of assessment, example, disability support, youth work, financial counselling, employment services, etc. Providing an example of a scenario wherein the indicated type of assessment is being used per context specified. So the first one is strengths-based assessment. So strengths-based assessment is, I'll quickly read out the little paragraph that's there, and perhaps just take some notes while I do that. So strengths-based assessments are used to identify a client's strengths and show them how to use them to tackle any problems they may have. To empower your clients in making decisions, you should work closely with them to identify their strengths. You must work with the client to assess their needs and concerns based on the strengths and capabilities. So can anyone tell me what a definition of a strengths-based assessment is going to be? So I am going to put it out there to you guys to either whatever you feel more comfortable with, you can speak or type. But can anyone tell me what they think the definition of a strengths-based assessment would be?
Individual self-determination and strength.
That's a pretty good answer.
Or assessing client strength and letting them know to use them to deal with their problems.
Yeah. That's another good answer. Now, what context would you use it in? So in what way would you use it?
Identifying the problem.
Yeah. And you'd need
Empowering client to use their own strengths to deal with their tasks.
very good. There's two very good answers. And then finally, how the assessment can be used based on the context specified. So how would you then use that strengths-based assessment? So you just have to give an example there of how you would use a strengths-based assessment.
Well, to me,
Assessing their needs.
yeah, and working with the client to identify first how much capable they are to deal with their routines, and then empowering or encouraging them to take their decisions and implement their strengths.
That's a very good answer, both of you. Thank you very much. So you're well on the way to answering question 1. The next part of question 1 is domain-based assessment. So a domain-based assessment specifies various areas that affect a person's capacity to manage various aspects of their life, such as mental health and health education. The client's needs and concerns are assessed based on how they are doing in different areas of health, such as physical, social, and psychological health. So can anyone have a guess what the definition of a domain-based assessment would be? And if you guys like, you can also have your learner guide open as well.
Well,
And
I
manage
just have
various
my
aspects of the
assessment
client.
opened already. So I'm just reading my answers, what I have written already.
Okay.
Will that be okay?
Yeah, no problem. And thank you, Sadaf. And somebody else spoke at the same time. We didn't catch what you said.
I think that was me. That was just the capacity to manage the various aspects of the client's life, mental health, and any other physical definition that could support the assessment.
That's correct. That's a great answer as well. So very similar to the strengths-based assessment, in what context would you use a domain-based assessment?
Health and cognitive function.
Yeah.
Well, mental health, social needs, and physical health, etc.
It's about their emotions and social welfare or health being. So yeah.
Yeah, perfect. And so for the uses, the context and then how the assessment can be used based on the context specified. So these kind of overlap.
Basically, how is the client doing in different areas of health and stability?
Yeah. So different areas of health, such as physical, social, and psychological health. So it's a bit of everything there.
Yeah.
And then just give me a moment. I'm just going to turn on the light. And then how the assessment can be used based on the context specified. Someone just answered that. Then if we go to norm-based assessment, norm-based assessment compares a client's performance to that of the other members of the group. They decide whether the performer was on par with, better than, or worse than the average. The client's needs and concerns are also assessed by comparing their scores or performance against statistical norms. So can someone give me a definition of norm-based assessment?
Well, it's done under statistical norms or comparison to other people of the same group.
That's right. And then in what context would you use it?
Well, that's the assessment done and compared of other member of the same age group to find the intensity and needs and the solutions for that particular client.
That's right. And I'm just sorry to be a pain, everybody. I'm just going to quickly take the attendance and then just do the announcement again about the knowledge questions just for the people that might have missed it. So just give me 30 seconds.
Hi guys, it's Leanne here. So whilst Kylie's doing that, what I'm offering this week is that for anyone who completes and submits their knowledge questions by Sunday night, I will make time for you next week to help you through your role play assessments. I'll be the volunteer and I'll be able to be there for you and to help you do those first video role plays. But only if you submit your 10 knowledge questions by Sunday night. So that's the incentive, guys. If you want some help to move on to the next step, all you have to do is complete these knowledge questions and submit them by Sunday night. And Joan, if you can let Terry know that too, please.
Terry?
Yeah, if you can let Terry know that too.
Who's Terry? You mean Katie?
Terry Sinclair. Joan.
Yeah, I can let Terry
Joan,
know.
I don't know why I'm thinking about for you. Somebody, Megan, if you can let
Yeah,
Terry know.
yeah, no, that's
And
okay.
Joan,
I can let
Terry. Yeah, right, sorry,
All
and if
good.
Joan can let Katie know that.
No, that's fine. All good.
Katie, Terry, let everybody know.
Fair enough.
Okay, everyone. Now I've like got a bit sidetracked there with the attendance, and I apologise about that. So just to be fair to everybody, I'll read out the paragraph about the norm-based assessment again, just as a refresher. So norm-based assessment compares a client's performance to that of other members of the group. They decide whether the performer was on par with, so that means equal to, better than, or worse than the average. The client's needs and concerns are also assessed by comparing their scores or performance against statistical norms. So we already had a definition there. In what context would you use a norm-based assessment?
Level of function for the needs for the client, depending on the assessment.
Yeah, that's a good answer. Anybody else?
Possibly characteristics from other people in their age group.
Yeah, that's a good answer too. And for those who haven't answered yet and may not have started the readings, just have a go and just have a guess, because you never know, you might guess it right. And nobody's going to criticize you if you get it wrong. This is not about who's right or wrong. It's just everybody. We just want everybody just to have a turn and participate. So again, for uses, how the assessment can be used based on the context specified. Can anyone think what that might be? And there's two possible answers.
Comparing their scores and performance against statistics.
Yeah. And there's another correct answer. That's okay if you can't come up with it now. Just
Maybe averaging better from worse to average.
Yep. Who was that who's just given all those clues?
Joan.
Joan. Like it's really, really good that you are all over this, but and I'm certainly not telling you to be quiet, but I want some of the other people to also have a go as well. Just because it's not fair on you if everybody is doing their assessments based on the homework that you've clearly been doing. And it's okay. Like, we understand that people are busy and have work and home and juggling a lot of things, especially if you're running a house. And we understand, and that's why we're just going to go through the knowledge questions a bit more in detail, just to help everyone out, to get everyone on track. So we understand if people haven't done the readings yet, but it's time to start doing the readings and getting these knowledge questions done so you can do your role plays, only because we will be moving on to the next unit very soon and we don't want anybody to fall behind. So we'll move on. A competency-based assessment is the next assessment tool, and competency-based assessment mainly focuses on the client's actual or potential skills and competencies in relation to predetermined performance standards. Their suitability and aptitude for particular roles are assessed through this process. A competency-based assessment ensures that the client's skills and competency profiles align with their needs and concerns using a set of criteria. So, in saying that, who can give me a definition for a competency-based assessment?
Well, that focused on client's potential competence.
Mm-hmm.
The client is competent enough to do the things, but they just needs a little bit of the support to fulfill that task. Like my client, she is just able to do the shopping, but for transportation, she is not able. So in that concern, we just can help them with the transportation.
Yep, that's right.
Yep.
And in what context would you use a competency-based assessment?
真的，我真的租不起。停这里没关系，我要拿那个什么，要拿那个图纸，帮你伸过来。你拿。
So can anyone tell me what context you would use a competency-based assessment? So it would be pretty much, Sadaf, did you want to help expand on what you just said? Because that was absolutely correct. And you did cover definition and context all in one. Are you able to expand a little bit more on what you just said? Because that was a really good answer.
Well, I have just used my experience in that thing. Like some of my clients, they are competent enough to do their own things. But for some certain tasks, they need help. So I just said, I mentioned in my assignment as well. So some of my clients, they are just competent enough to organize their shopping list. But the problem is their transportation. So if I drive them to the shopping center, or if the support worker drive them to the shopping center, they can manage their shopping and everything. They can deal with the finance and everything. But for that particular transportation thing, they are just dependent. So if we just help them, they can do their things far more better. So similarly, my client is just good enough with the cooking and everything, but with chopping, just because of their, hands are not moving because of arthritis and things, so they can't chop it. So if you do that help, they are just competent enough to just do the cookings.
So the context you would use it in would be to assess their competency with, in particular with your client, with the activities of daily living.
Yeah, with just a little bit of empowering them so they can do it on their own.
Yep, perfect. Okay, so we'll move on because there's lots of questions to get through and we've only got just about 40 minutes left. So question 2, answer the questions below about the ways of collecting information in the assessment process. So the first one says, observation is one of the most common ways of collecting information about a person. Differentiate in your own words direct observation and indirect observation using 30 words or more. So 30 words is not much. That's maybe about 3 to 4 sentences each. Or no, that 30 words or more. So that would be in total. So that's probably about 2 sentences or, you know, or so for each direct observation and indirect observation.
So to clarify there, Kyle, it's 30 words for your definition of direct observation and 30 words for your direct definition of indirect, or 30 in total? I think probably
In total, it looks like.
Yeah, you probably could do that in total. And I'm sure you'd find that in your learner guide.
Well, so my understanding in this question is, when I just started with one of my client or with any of my client, I was given a care plan to go through to just know what the client is, what the age, what their requirements are, what their medications are. So that care plan was just prepared by the case managers. So that was an indirect observation for me, because I personally had no experience with that client. So I have just gone through the care plan, which was just made by the case manager, mentioning GP's review, physios and everyone. And when I just started with the client with that indirect resource and indirect observation, I started working with the client and I have made my own observations. So that's the main difference with the direct, observation and indirect observations to me. So just dealing with them, spending time with them, I have my own observations and I have my own opinions about the client. So that's the difference between indirect and direct observations for me.
I've got to say, that's a really, really excellent example. Thank you so much. That's really good. I can see that you've really done a lot of work, and that's really good. No problems. So I'll just quickly read out. This is straight from page 38 in the learner guide. So direct observation, this is where you gather information by directly witnessing or experiencing something yourself. It involves first-hand, real-time observation of the client's behaviour, actions or responses. As a community service worker, you collect information about the client by personally experiencing it through your primary senses like seeing, touching, smelling, tasting and hearing. Conducting interviews, hang on, I'll save that for the next question. And then indirect observation involves relying on second-hand information or data collected by someone else. You analyse the data generated by others, such as videos and audio recordings, reports, questionnaires, responses, and similar sources. So it's exactly how Sadaf said that that's a direct observation when you're seeing it with your own eyes, and an indirect observation when it's being given to you in a handover. And then for the next part, conducting interviews with the person is a good opportunity for making direct observations. Provide 2 main types of information you can get from in-person interviews. So again, on page 38 of the learner guide, it says conducting interviews with the person is a good opportunity for making direct observations. The following are the types of information you can get from conducting interviews. So you can get, so write this down, because this is, I'm going to give you this answer.
Well, I have 2 options here. If you just check it's right or not.
Okay, tell me.
Yes, so you can get insight about their behavior and cognition.
Yeah.
And the second one is you can observe their competence to deal with their daily routine stuff.
That's a good answer, but in the learner guide, I'll tell you exactly what it says. Person's general behaviour, person's knowledge and thoughts, personal reflection and insights, personal stories or narratives. So the first one that you said about the behavior, that's
Behavior.
absolutely, that's
And
absolutely
cognition.
correct. Yep. And then you would pick one of the other 3 that are here on page 38 of the learner guide. So if you just want to just make a note, page 38 of the learner guide, because that's where you'll get your information from for that part of question 2. And then it says, apart from conducting interviews with the person, conducting interviews with the person support network is also important. Briefly explain in your own words why this is necessary throughout the assessment process, and your response must be in 30 words or more. So can anyone tell me why it would be important to conduct interviews with the person support network as well as the person?
Well, as such, you want to conduct interviews with the family, friends, caregivers, and any critical, like, kind of other groups that you would work with about the client. To assess all the needs and their relationships and their needs and vulnerabilities and insights.
That's right. That's exactly right. So just so you can get the whole picture, because when you talk to the person,
all of the information together collectively can show a more like a holistic assessment and a greater accuracy of what's happening overall.
Yeah, that's great, Kaylee. That's a really good answer. So Kaylee's just nailed it there. So the next part is briefly explain in your own words the relevance of consulting other community service workers, i.e. your colleagues, during the assessment process. And again, your responses must be in 30 words or more. So the answer that Kaylee just gave for the previous one, this expands on that a little bit, because we're talking about consulting other community service workers now, for instance, your colleagues, during the assessment process. Why would that be?
I can go again if you want.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so kind of consulting with different colleagues and groups in it during the assessment process can actually foster a collaboration and knowledge sharing and more of a comprehensive understanding of the person's situation, and kind of promotes that more collective approach, improving the quality of support and intervention overall.
That's brilliant.
And also to use their expertise to sort out the problems or define the conditions.
Yep, that's right. That's really, really good. Now, the next one is asking about a medical report. You'll get that information on page 39 of your learner guide. And it says these reports are documents that contain information about the person's medical history, including previous examinations, treatments, results, and responses. This can be used as a basis for identifying and assessing needs and supports required. So the question is asking one type of document to refer to when collecting a person's information is a medical report. In your own words, define what a medical report is using 30 words or more. Now, it's also important to note that when you do get the answers out of the learner guide, that you do try and reword it a little bit so it's not word for word copied and pasted. And I understand that there will be some questions where you've got no option but to copy and paste from, like you can't, you're not able to change the terminology and things like that. But just generally try and reword it. So the definition of medical reports, like I just read out, is on page 39. Now, the next one is, while questionnaires are a good way to get information from several relevant people in the assessment process, this method has its limitations. Provide 2 limitations of questionnaires. Can anyone tell me offhand what those limitations are?
Respondent should be able to read and write.
Yep. Perfect.
And respondent cognition should be intact to respond the question.
Yeah, that's a good one. And in the learner guide, just following on from that, in the learner guide it says respondents have strong literacy skills to understand the questions and provide more detailed responses. Respondents should have the ability to write. Questionnaires can sometimes be time consuming because it may take a while to fill them out, gather the data and analyse it. So Sadaf, your answer was pretty good, but you might want to work on the second one a little bit and just refer to page 38, because the second one was a good answer, but we're looking for, because you nailed it with the first one. You've actually got two answers in one, where you said about the like the being able to read and write.
Read and write, yeah.
Yep. So that's that's perfect. And then you've got that the questionnaires can sometimes be time consuming.
Okay.
So that's that's excellent. I can see that you've done a lot of work and worked really hard, and you know everyone's really proud of you, and we're all really proud of everyone, because I know that it's really hard for everybody to do this work and this study, but it will be so rewarding when you get your diploma.
Yeah.
So question 3, complete the table below. Identify 3 types of assessment tools used in community service contexts. Briefly describe in your own words the role of each type of assessment tool identified, and your response must be in 30 words or more. Now, we already touched on assessment tools.
This question was a bit tricky for me to sort it out, because if you just find assessment tools, it was showing so many different tools, which was just, titled with assessment tools. I just made some questions here to ask you today. Then still I was just working to figure it out. Then I just find the answer that was just on question number, page 27.
It's just the psychometric test at the
Yeah.
genogram
Then
and
I
the mental state.
exactly. Then just spending time on it, I just figure out these 3 ones. So
Yeah.
it's yes, a psychometric test, genograms analysis, and mental state examination.
That's right.
Yeah, no, that's right. Absolutely. So for all the different types of assessment tools, you'd be looking at pages 25 through to, I think, about page 28, and there's a lot of different examples there of the different types of assessment tools.
Yeah.
And then briefly describing in your own words the role of each type of assessment tool identified, and again, 30 words or more. So so that should be pretty straightforward. If you've got your answer out of page 27, then you are on the right track.
Yeah.
So question 4, several people are involved and play different roles in the entire assessment process. Complete the table below by identifying 2 other roles that people involved in the assessment process hold. The first and second items are provided, identifying one responsibility associated with each person's role. So this one I actually am finding a bit tricky myself to find the answer for. So I'm interested to see what you guys have got.
I'm sure some of our case managers would be able to identify 2 other roles.
Well, I just wrote here the 2 different ones, family and friends, and healthcare professionals, GP, psychologist, and physio, etc. I don't know if it's right or wrong, but that's what I believe should be.
Family and therapist, I guess.
Yeah, and then you've already got client and community service worker, and then
Yeah.
you've got the next two would be family and therapist, and that's the only part of the answers I'm going to give you for this question, but I will tell you that it's on page 22. So just take a note that it's on page 22 and there's your answers right there. So question 5, answer the following questions about the assessment process in community services context. The setting or environment has a great impact on the assessment process and its outcomes. Briefly explain in your own words how a good environment for the person, client can affect the assessment process. And again, 30 words or more. Has anyone got anything for this one?
Not yet so far, no.
Well, having a good environment affects the assessment process by providing a relaxed and comfortable settings for the client.
That's correct. And then you'd also so a good environment includes one that is supportive and conducive to the client's well-being and comfort. When the assessment process occurs in a good environment, the individual feels at ease, respected and listened to. The environment fosters trust. It allows the individuals to express their needs and experiences during the assessment freely. So for this question, so question 5, part A and B, you'd be looking at page 23. So part B says, briefly explain in your own words how a safe environment for the person / client can affect the assessment process. A safe environment ensures the client's physical and emotional safety throughout the assessment process. During the assessment, clients may be exposed to danger or face constraints threatening their safety. A safe environment includes physical safety measures and protection against harm, allowing for efficient assessment. And then it says the environment in which the assessment takes place significantly impacts how your clients will communicate. So that's on page 23. And then there's, if you wanted to do a bit of further reading about comfort level, potential distractions, availability of resources and availability of setting, it's on the next page. Then the next one is, in your own words, define validity of an assessment. So for validity, you would look on page 41 of your learner guide. So validity and, oh, here we go. Sorry, guys, I'm just looking through
which question we are reading here?
This is still question 5. And we're up to, it's part B, number 2.
2, okay.
So in your own words, define validity of an assessment. So you've got a lot of information about validity on page 41, 42, 43, 44, 45. So if you look at those pages, You'll see a lot of information about validity. This is a bit of a hard question. So page 43 is again, so page 41, 42, 43 covers validity, and then question 5B part 3 says to ensure validity of assessments, you need to be aware of and consider the different types of validity. Briefly describe in your own words each type of validity listed in the table below. So for content validity, there's 2 big paragraphs on page 43. Construct validity, another 2 big paragraphs on page 43, and then criterion related validity on page 44. And then question 5, under, I think it's B, and then it's Roman numeral 5. In your own words, define reliability of an assessment. So reliability is on page 45. Reliability refers to the consistency of a measurement technique across different attempts at measuring the same concept or task. In terms of reliability, the results should be consistent in a way that they are produced the same way across time. This is the degree to which an assessment tool provides stable and consistent results. These are only reliable if different community service workers can interpret them the same way. Reliability is important because there should not be a large difference between what a client remembers about an event and what they actually saw or heard. So that's a bit of a spiel on reliability on page 45. And sorry if I'm moving fast, it's just I really want to get through all these questions with you guys before 8 o'clock. But it's not looking likely, but I just want to get through as much content. I'd rather just spit out page numbers and tell you where to find answers than go into detail. If we had all day, then I'd go into a lot of detail, but we just don't have the time. So Roman numeral 6 of question 5, part B, says to ensure reliability of the assessment, there are several factors that you need to consider. Now, those factors are on page 46, and they are psychological and physical state of the client, setting or environment in which the evaluation is administered, for example, physical environment, time of administration, etc. Test format, i.e. parallel forms of assessment, variations in the evaluation or rating of multiple assessors, and the consistency with which the assessment is administered, i.e. the duration of the assessment. So they're the factors that you need to consider. And then underneath that, you've got A, B, C, and then Roman numeral 8, which is a little bit confusing the way this is numbered, but as long as you guys can follow where I'm up to. Okay, so the next part is about reporting requirements. Has anybody got up to this part of their knowledge questions yet?
I'm a bit
Not-
confused with these questions.
Yes.
I really can't pinpoint where in the what do you call this learner guide that we have. So yeah.
Okay. So your reporting requirements can be found on page 233, 209,
Yeah, I'm on the right path. 209. 209.
and 210.
Yeah.
So if you look at those 3 pages, then that's where you'll find your answer. And I apologise if it's difficult. Just have a go at answering the questions. I mean, unfortunately, I can't give the answers away, but just have a go, and you'll get feedback on how you went. But I'm confident that everyone will be able to get through it. And if you can't get through it, and there's some reason where there's some kind of blockage with your learning, or you just don't understand, come and see me or contact me on tomorrow. I'll be in the office tomorrow. And if you're not available tomorrow, Leanne is available every day. We're here to assist you. So the next one is describe in your own words 3 reporting formats used in community service assessments. So again, you'd go back to those same pages, page 209, 210 and 233. And then for question 6, answer the following questions relevant to privacy, confidentiality and disclosure below. And then it says list the 4 activities covered in relation to handling an individual's personal information based on the Privacy Act 1988.
For this question, Kylie, do we need to put word per word? Because the thing is, collection of personal information, or do we need to,
I think you can put that word for word, just
okay.
because that's exactly what the question's asking you. It's the only time you have to reword it is if it's like a complete paragraph. Then just change a couple of words and rephrase it a little bit. But like I said, for some things you won't be able to. So so the 4 activities covered in relation to handling an individual's personal information based on Privacy Act 1988 are the collection of personal information, use of personal information, storage of personal information, and the disclosure of personal information. And that is on page 31.
And in the next question, we need to write these 13 Australian privacy principles as it is, right?
That's correct. So Australian privacy principles, you'll see on page 32, 33. And then there's further reading on page 81. There's a link there on page 81, but that's if you want to do further reading, that's cool. Otherwise, just the page numbers that I gave you, that's where you'll find the 13 privacy principles. This is really important stuff, so that's why I'm not going to give any clues apart from page numbers, just because this is really, really a really important part of your diploma that you really need to know.
Yeah.
And then according to Australian Privacy Principle number 6, disclosures of information is only permitted if done for the primary purpose. However, where exception applies, disclosure of information for a secondary purpose may be permitted. List 4 of these exceptions. So on page 32, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 exceptions there. So just pick 4 of those and you can copy that word for word, because that's how you're going to need to answer that question. And then you've got list the 6 security considerations when maintaining and storing a client's personal information according to Australian Privacy Principle 11. So you may need to go into
Internet.
You can, but if you look on page 266,
200.
there's at the very top of page 266, there's Office of the Australian Commissioner.
Yep.
And that's got a link there to Australian Privacy Principles quick reference. So I suggest going to that link at the very top of page 266. And that's where you'll get all the information. So some of the information is not going to be in the learner guide, and some of it you may need to use Google or other websites, but just make sure that where you go, it's the right information, because there's a lot of wrong information on the internet as well.
That's right.
So it says list the 2 responsibilities you have to maintain the confidentiality of personal information and eventually protect your client's privacy. Can anyone tell me what that is off the top of their head?
Following organizations policy or records or whatever.
So you'd go to page 219. (219), 220 for that question. And I think we've got time for one more question tonight.
Yeah.
So question 7, in your own words, define duty of care in the context of community services. I don't think you guys are even going to need to refer to your learner guide. I think you all would know what duty of care is by now. If not, just search the document for duty of care. And in the context of duty of care, list 3 duties of a community service worker to the person being supported. So again, just search the document for duty of care. There's a lot of information in that learner guide about duty of care. So there's a lot of opportunities to get your answers there. Then complete the table below by identifying one legislation of your state and territory relative to duty of care in the client assessment process, and then describing in your own words how each legislation is relevant to the assessment process. because this is such an important question, I'm going to leave it there. And I've got about 3 or 4 minutes left. Has anybody got any questions?
Kylie, can I just come in? We're so close to the end. Do you mind if we keep going? If people want to leave, they can leave. But if you want to just go through the 10 questions.
Yep, no problem at all.
Thank you. That'd be great.
All good. I wasn't sure. So, like I said with question 7, that it's a really important question. So I'm not going to help with that question. I really want you guys to find that answer yourself. And then question 8, in your own words, define informed consent in the context of the client assessment process using 30 words or more. Can anyone tell me a little bit about informed consent?
Do you have anything tomorrow? Can you do Surrey Hills? 10 a.m. Yeah, hang on there, hang on.
Come on, I'm sure some of our case managers, Mitzi, Megan, informed consent. Chani?
Where the client understands what the assessment's regarding, what they're sharing their information, why their information's being collected, where it's being stored, total understanding of what's going on with what they're consenting to.
That's excellent. That's an excellent answer. That's exactly what we're looking for. So to obtain consent from the client, you need to make sure that the clients are provided with sufficient information towards the assessment they will undergo. Provide 2 examples of this type of information. So can anyone tell me what 2 types of information you would require?
A consent form.
Consent form, correct?
And yeah, just that discussing who information will be shared to, who you can discuss the client with, like allied health or other community service providers, GPs. That's usually covered in all of that.
Yep, very good. Now, it's asking you to complete the table below by identifying 2 legislations relevant to informed consent in the client assessment process, and then describing in your own words how each legislation identified is relevant to the assessment process. So this is, again, another tricky question. And so for your duty of care question, go to page 36. I know I'm backtracking a bit. And for legislation relevant to the assessment process, you would then go to page 51, and there's a heap of information about legislation relevant to the assessment process, and you just select your state, and then you would open the link, and then you've got New South Wales legislation, and then you've got, yeah, that's all the different legislation there. So and then you just have to put how the legislation is relevant to the assessment process. So there's really a lot of information that you can get from the link in the learner guide. Then question 9 is complete the table below by listing 3 real specialist service providers applicable to community services. Embed or attach a link to the website homepage of the specialist service provider listed. Enumerating 2 types of specialist services that the service provider identified offers. So specialist service providers, you'll find that information on page 167. And then that'll go right through 168, 169, and I think 169 is where it's really going to be at. But read from page 167 just to get your head around what they're actually asking. And then you'll find your answers on page 169. Question 10. Complete the table below about needs affecting client groups by identifying one example of a complex need for each category listed below, explaining in your own words the nature of each complex needs identified, explaining in your own words the impact of each identified complex need on the person's well-being, identifying one example of a complex need interrelated with each complex need item in item I, and then explaining in your own words the interrelationship between the complex needs identified in items I, or in items Roman numeral number 4 and Roman numeral number 5. So that's I and IV. So for complex needs and interrelated needs, you would go to page 131 in the learner guide. And that's where you'll find that answer. And there's, it's too much for me to read out tonight, but there's a lot of information there on page 131 that will answer this question. And that's the whole question here. So 131, 132, 133, 134, right through to 136. So there's a lot of pages there, but you've got a lot of different examples that you need to put. So it's just a matter of reading those pages and then just filling out what's in this section of the question. So listed below are client services for community services. Complete the table below by identifying 2 common service requirements that individuals may have for each client service, briefly explaining in your own words the relevance of each service requirement in assessing client needs. So the common service requirements, along with the assessing the client needs, you'll find on page 161.
Are we on question 11?
We already did question 11. And I did that really quickly because I gave the page numbers for it, but I'll go back to it.
No, I just noted the pages, but then I just missed it somehow.
Can anybody help out with the page numbers that I gave for question 11?
It was 131 to 136.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So question 12, listed below are the client services for community services. Complete the table below by identifying 2 common service requirements that individuals may have for each client service, and briefly explaining in your own words the relevance of each service requirement in assessing clients' needs. So the common service requirements.
Sorry, I have to get going.
That's okay. That's okay. No problem.
Thank you. Bye.
All good. See ya.
Bye.
So page 161 through to $165 or thereabouts will help you answer this question. And then question 13, it's asking you again about client services. So listed below are examples of client services for community service. Complete the table below by identifying 2 basic features for each client service, explaining in your own words how each identified basic feature affects client needs assessments. So that's again in that same section, but I'll give you the page numbers. Has anybody answered this question yet?
Not me.
No, me either. Just stand by, I'll get to it. So some examples of client services for community service. So get ready to type this out. Actually, the page numbers that I gave you for question 12 are relevant for question 13 as well. So can someone repeat what the question numbers, what the page numbers were for question 12?
161 to 165.
That's correct. Thank you very much. So that's the page numbers that you'll need to answer question 13.